The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It's Wednesday, the 18th of February, 2026. We're live here at CHD TV. We've got a great show for you today. So in a minute, we're going to have a science update with Karl Jablonowski from our science department at Children's Health Defense. Then, special treat, we have Chelsea and McKay Tanner on. McKay is 10 years old and he's waiting in the wings to talk to you. So stay tuned for him. And then we're going to filmmaker Jacqui Deevoy from England, who's going to talk about her new book, Murdered by the State, and the films that she's made, the amazing films that she's made. It's a great show. But let's start now with Karl this morning. Good morning, Karl.
Good morning, Polly.
Right, let's have a science update from you, please. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, so I often get lost in the trees and can't really see the forest for what it is. So I'd like to step back and just take a look at an overview because things are getting really heated. There is a schism that is brewing in the science in pediatrics concerning vaccinations. Now, when I ask pediatricians about vaccine safety, they usually evoke the CDC and sometimes the AAP. But now they're going to have to choose one or the other because they're saying different things. Now, this struggle is evolving very recently and very rapidly. On the one side, the medical freedom movement, who continue to insist that adequate science has not been done. And on the other side are people who believe that vaccines are perfectly safe, and they use phrases like safe and effective, trust the experts, the science is settled. And onlookers and pediatricians are rightly confused. The safe and effective crowd is really well organized and really well funded, and have made moves recently on aluminum adjuvants and hepatitis B vaccine. In just last December, Christine Stable-Ben and Peter Abbey were awarded $1.6 million from the CDC to study hepatitis B vaccine in newborns of Guinea-Bissau. Last month, Rolling Stone gave Paul Offit the platform to describe it as Kennedy's, quote, own Tuskegee experiment. Now, vax-unvax studies have ethical issues. If it is believed that a vaccine is both safe and effective, then withholding the vaccine to inspect that belief is withholding medical care. However, in Guinea-Bissau, newborns don't typically get the birth Hep B dose, but the country is planning to standardize it in 2028. When transitioning from one practice to another is the most ethical and sound time to study that transition, and it's the most threatening to the safe and effective narrative. Due to pressure, the Guinea-Bissau government has put a pause on the project pending an ethics review, which Retraction Watch, which is funded by two billionaires, Laura and John Arnold, through Arnold Ventures, which also funds PubPeer, which is more commonly referred to as PubSmear. But Retraction Watch was happy to publish a piece by two bioethicists, Kaplan from NYU and Marino from UPenn, who seem completely unaware that newborns in the country don't currently get the birth Hep B dose. Neither does any critic of this study. And, Doctors Ben and Abby are exactly the kind of people you want running this study. They are ferocious scientists. Now, another pair of billionaires are Christy Walton and her son, Lucas. Both are heirs to the Walmart fortune and pharmacy. Lucas Walton is a major donor to Alumbra Innovations Foundation, which is founded, directed, and also funded by his mother, Christy Walton. Between 2021 and 2024, they've given over $2.5 million to the University of Minnesota Foundation to fund CIDRAP, which is the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy. It is my go-to for misinformation, which launched the ironically named Vaccine Integrity Project. I suspect Alumbra dramatically increased the funding in 2025 because Rochelle Walensky, the former CDC director, can't be cheap. The day before the last ACIP meeting, Walensky published in JAMA advocating for the universal Hep B vaccine dose at birth because of the unknown Hep B status of some mothers, based on a model still hosted by the Vaccine Integrity Project. In that model, if you resolve the unknowns with a simple $5 bedside test and give both the monoclonal antibody and the vaccine only to newborns of Hep B positive mothers, which is standard of care, you actually prevent more infections than if you vaccinated everyone, because the vaccine alone is not as protective. Now, just last February 5th, Walensky and CIDRAP published in Pediatrics, the journal of the AAP, an article titled Hepatitis B Vaccinations at Birth, Safety, Effectiveness, and Public Health Benefit. This is how it goes. They reviewed a bunch of studies and concluded, quote, "Our review of the evidence found that the universal hepatitis B birth dose is a safe and effective strategy." That study included a review of 17 research articles on safety, most of which had really small sample size or really short outcome window, or both. 2 papers that should never have been published made that list. Erickson in 2004 in California, Kaiser Permanente, which oversees hundreds of thousands of births, they compared vaxxed and unvaxxed for neonatal death within the first 28 days. They matched on a few characteristics and concluded, quote, "No significant difference," except that it wasn't a simple vaxxed, unvaxxed study. They did not match on gestational age or birth weight. The unvaxxed group had a median gestational age of 28 weeks, extreme prematurity. The vaxxed group, 39 weeks, which is full term. The unvaxxed group had a median birth weight of 3 pounds, and the vaxxed was 6.8 pounds. It was not a vaxxed and unvaxxed study. It was a full term versus extreme prematurity and low birth weight study. Yet Walensky summarizes it with, quote, "No increase in infant death attributed to hepatitis B vaccination," which you cannot possibly conclude from this study. But what takes the prize of, "I can't believe you just cited that paper," is Morgan, published in 2025. It was published in the Bulletin of the World Health Organization. It was of 818 Australian infants, some vaccinated, some not vaccinated. It sounds good, except they were all extremely premature infants, weighing birth weight about 2 pounds. The authors found, and Walensky highlights, no increase in bronchopulmonary dysplasia or all-cause mortality. The all-cause mortality claim is stunningly absurd because you would need a cohort at least 3 times the size to even come close to statistically saying that. Now, no increase in lung disease would be good to know when considering vaccinating an extremely premature infant, but hardly broadly applicable. However, the study doesn't even shed light on the topic they study. It comes with a few caveats, 2 small ones and 1 really big one. This one small caveat, it's retrospective. They already chose to take the vaccine or not. The 2 groups are different. The vaccinated had higher birth weight, less congenital heart disease. They were born to younger mothers. They were less likely to be born to indigenous people. Another small caveat is that the authors could not access the medical records, so they could not confirm anything. The biggest caveat which sinks this ship, the authors didn't know the sex of the infants they studied. That's not that they didn't report it or they didn't find it relevant. Quote, data on the sex of the infants were unavailable. Now, the infant's sex dictates every variable in this paper. Males are more likely to be born premature and therefore included in the study. They are more likely to have congenital heart disease. They're more likely to die in infancy, the secondary outcome of this paper, and they are up to twice as likely to have bronchopulmonary dysplasia, which is a primary outcome of this paper. If extremely premature males were slightly less likely to be vaccinated in this data set for whatever reason, every observation is explainable by a difference in the sex of the cohort. The authors not knowing the sex of the infant makes this study actually worthless. Now, there are plenty of horrible studies out there, and this one has an abysmal conclusion, quote, our findings provide support for existing World Health Organization recommendations to immunize all infants. What I find difficult to wrap my head around is that Walensky, the former CDC director, leans on it to assert the safety of the hepatitis B birth dose. At best, she never read it. Much worse, she did and stands by it. Either way, the Waltons should probably ask for their money back because Walensky and the Vaccine Integrity Project are definitely not delivering on whatever promise they made. This was their initiative to show that hepatitis B birth dose vaccine is safe, and they failed miserably. And in that failing, they actually demonstrate the counterpoint that hepatitis B birth dose has never been shown to be safe. Now, you may have noticed the sycophantic support of the World Health Organization recommendation published in the Bulletin of the World Health Organization. Well, on aluminum adjuvants, we see the same thing. A paper published the day before the last ACIP meeting in Pediatrics, the journal of the AAP, referenced the AAP schedule. It's a safety study on aluminum adjuvants, or at least its facade. It cites Mitkus, which is the theory that if you take the bioretention of aluminum of one adult and the biodistribution of 2 rabbits, adjust for body weight, you can make a back-of-the-envelope calculation to show aluminum is perfectly safe, so long as you don't actually know anything about aluminum, and you make sure to keep a blind eye towards the 1% of the retained aluminum in those rabbits went to their brains. It also cites Movsas, which wrote a paper entitled The Effects of Routine Vaccination on Aluminum and Essential Element Levels in Preterm Infants. The study reported the percent change after vaccination of iron, manganese, copper, selenium, and zinc. Not aluminum, the only element in their title. It also cites Karwowski that excluded all the outliers and then concludes no correlation. It cites the ridiculous Anderson study of the 1.2 million children in Denmark, which also cited Mitkus, Movsas, and Karwowski. And they contradict their own data, which clearly shows there's an association between autism and aluminum, while demonstrating their lack of understanding of aluminum. Frankly, citing Mitkus alone, I believe, should disqualify any credibility you have for asserting safety of the aluminum adjuvants. And it's fitting that the second author of this paper, Maldonado, was one of the former ACIP members dismissed and replaced with the current ACIP. Now, more recently, Offit published in JAMA on February 9th a paper titled Aluminum Exposure from Vaccines and Diet, and cites Mitkus and Anderson, the Danish study, and the pediatrics paper. You know, it's all about ingested aluminum. How could they be different? How could a nanoparticle constructed of aluminum that is wrapped around by by adjuvants and injected into your muscle be different than aluminum ingested? Well, we all eat food that contains fat and RNA, and by off its logical sleight of hand, the mRNA lipid nanoparticle is completely safe and effective because we all eat those ingredients. It's hard for me to believe that things have come to this. When I say a scientific schism, I don't mean that there are two groups that have respectable differences of opinion. The American Medical Association is partnering with the ironically named Vaccine Integrity Project to evaluate vaccine safety and efficacy. The AAP is promoting their own schedule and suing the federal government for recommending a different one. They are de facto creating a cassette, their own advisory committee, their own working groups, their own special interest relations with Big Pharma. And when the administration changes, once again favoring the profiteers, all they have to do is slide in this cassette, and it's like progress never happened, and we all lose.
Karl, this is sterling work exposing all of this, but here's my question. What are we going to do with this? And also, people like Walensky, I mean, they should be in jail. Babies have died because of this fraudulent science.
Yes. These recent activities are a reaction to the change in status quo, and status quo loves bystanders. We need to engage as much as possible. The medical freedom movement can be perceived as a social justice movement. Many pediatricians, in fact, most of the pediatricians of this country, are members of the AAP, and they wear it as a badge of honor, but know that it's not. It's a badge of allegiance. There are about 60,000 members of the AAP that pay over $100, sometimes up to $600 or $700 for that membership. The AAP brings in an annual revenue of over $100 million. It is a well-funded machine that is operating against our best interest. And it is, as all social justice movements move, one person at a time, every single pediatrician who's a member of the AAP has an opinion of these topics. And they're going to be looking upon the AAP's actions either with pride or with something else, but certainly, not in between.
Karl Jablonowski, thank you so much for coming on this morning and updating us on that fantastic work. We truly appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, now we're going to go to Chelsea and McKay. Tana, good morning, both of you.
Hi, good morning, Polly.
Good morning. Good morning, McKay.
Good morning.
10 years old live on CHD TV. Thank you for being here. We're going to talk to you in just a second. We're going to have a quick chat with your mum first. And so, Chelsea, you're a stay-at-home mother. You've got 2 children, McKay sitting there, and you've also got Shelby, who's 5. Shelby, 5?
Yeah.
Oh, there she is. So how did you realize what happened? Talk us through what happened with your son injured by vaccine. That's McKay sitting there. Tell us what happened.
Okay. Well, McKay was born healthy, normal, everything was fine. And of course, we were following the CDC schedule. I felt it kind of a badge of honor to be able to check off each vaccine that I was being a good mom. And then at his 12-month appointment, he received, 5 shots that month for 7 different diseases. And so that's a picture of him right before he got those shots. He was just the happiest baby, always smiling, getting everyone's attention, just so happy and bright. And after that appointment, things started to go downhill. It took about a month before he started to show symptoms of diabetes, which included his thirst was just off the charts. He couldn't get enough water. He was soaking through diapers. I would get him up in the morning and his crib was just soaked. And that was even with me coming in the middle of the night and putting a fresh diaper on him. And it was just nagging at my mommy gut. And I started chatting with, friends and family members because, this was my first child. I didn't know what's normal and what's not normal. And everyone was reassuring me, oh, that's normal. You just need to size him up in diapers. He's probably really thirsty because he just started walking. And so that makes sense. And, I remember my kid having something similar like that happen around that age. But it just kept getting...
Sorry, so what actual age, do you know what vaccines he had and what age it was? Was it 18 months, was that?
Well, we followed the CDC schedule. At his 12-month appointment, he received the MMR, the varicella, the Hep A, and then twice that month, he received the flu vaccine because he was eligible for his first round of flu, which they gave, I believe, 3 to 4 weeks apart. But it was all in that same 30-day period that he received all of those.
Awful. And so he got he got a diagnosis in the end of diabetes and celiac?
Yeah, so I eventually took him into the pediatrician and I said, I'm really worried about diabetes. And they just brushed me off. They're like, there's no way. He's a healthy 1-year-old boy and he's doing fine. But I knew in my mommy gut something was wrong. So I really had to advocate for him, even in that appointment, just to get them to check his blood sugar. And when they did, it was off the charts. It was 481. You're supposed to be between 80 and 120. And so that was an immediate diagnosis. And we had to go to Primary Children's Hospital right away. And he was admitted for 2 days. And we had caught it early enough that he was not in diabetic ketoacidosis or DKA. So he was stable. It was really just about teaching us how to take care of this and how to inject insulin and things like that, and just make sure that we knew how to take care of him before they sent us home with this lethal drug. But it just shook our world. I mean, we could not believe it. My husband and I just were like, how does this happen to a 1-year-old? And of course, vaccines never really entered our mind for a while. We were in a really bad grieving space for about 2 years. We had all these dreams of what it's like to be a mother or a parent. And it just kind of ground to a halt. And it was all about keeping him alive every minute of every day. It was completely, totally encompassing our lives. And 24/7, no breaks. And, the horrors of having a baby, he couldn't tell us anything. We're having to wake him up multiple times a night to check his blood sugar. And it was just awful. It was a complete nightmare. And over those 2 years, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, McKay, making great faces there. McKay, tell us, let's hear from you for a little bit. What's it like living with diabetes and celiac? So you've got to be gluten-free as well, I take it.
Sometimes it's not as fun as you think, but it's just sometimes it's hard to wait because normally when you have diabetes, sometimes if you're above 120, you have to set a timer so that you don't shoot up your blood sugars to really high. So you usually have to wait to eat a snack. And sometimes it's hard to wait because a lot of times I'm really hungry and it's just waiting isn't my thing.
No, it's not my thing either, McKay, I can tell you that. And you have to be careful what you eat as well. So talk to us about what you can't eat and what you can eat.
So celiac is obviously just the disease where you can't have wheat. And it makes me feel sad because a lot of other kids at my school get to have wheat and it's just not fair. So Yeah, wheat it's just foods that seem really yummy that are made with wheat make me sad. Like there's some pizza restaurants that are really good, but some pizza restaurants have wheat and some pizza restaurants don't. But the pizza restaurants that do have wheat are really yummy, but I can't have those kinds because they're like the best. But it makes me sad because everyone else gets to eat it that doesn't have celiacs.
No, but you know what, McKay? I bet you anything those pizzas that your friends are eating have got glyphosate and other kind of chemicals. So actually, you are the healthiest of them all. So there's
Yeah,
that.
that's why I'm at least happy though that I'm healthy enough.
Yeah,
But
and
I
you
wish
look
I
healthy.
wish they would change the ingredients to make most foods healthy.
Well, don't worry. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is on that little task right now as we speak. McKay, what advice do you have for other parents and children your age?
What advice do you have?
Yeah.
What do you want to tell the other children or the other parents?
Well, that there's this other thing that had to make me cut out foods. So, because some of the vaccine, Mom, do you remember what vaccine gave me heavy metals?
All of them.
Yeah, pretty much all my vaccines gave me heavy metals, and we meet with this doctor. Her name's Kendall, and I'm on this diet where we have to cut foods out, and sometimes it's just hard about it. But the good news about it is that you get to try new things, eat new things, and it's just sometimes it's fun. And then eventually the diet's over, and you have extra foods to choose from. But still, the diet was kind of hard because there we had to cut out a lot of foods. We had to cut out like five kind of ingredients, and they're in pretty much all my favorite foods. We had to cut out soy, we had to cut out all rice, we had to cut out oats and corn and dairy, and it was just drama.
But how did you feel after?
After this diet, I felt really good because we were cutting out the foods that can sometimes upset tummies. And then we're slowly adding stuff back in, and it's starting to go back to normal where I'm going a little crazy. So we had to get oats back out so that we could try again.
Well, I think it's amazing what you're doing, McKay. And actually, the diet that you're on is probably the diet we should all be on, to be honest. Now, also, Mummy, tell us about, because you've got Shelby, so I'm curious, and you don't have to answer, maybe a personal question, but did you vaccinate Shelby after what happened to McKay?
Absolutely not. Let me hold on one second. So after we did figure out, I had a friend that kind of gave me a well-needed nudge to look into vaccines when McKay was 3 years old. And while it took me off guard, it was a huge blessing, and I started looking into vaccines, and that's everything I found just made me have this huge realization. Oh my gosh, this was the vaccines. You know, I found a link between MMR and type 1 diabetes. I found a link between when you're given mercury vaccines and aluminum vaccines. That there's a special reaction that can trigger autoimmunity. And I also learned that type 1 diabetes is most commonly diagnosed around 18 months old and 5 to 6 years of age in children, which corresponds with the MMR schedule. And so all these things were huge light bulb effects. So when we decided to have another child, it was a hard no. We were not having any interventions, nothing while I was pregnant. And we cleaned up everything in our household, the foods we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, everything. And it was just a completely different experience with my daughter. She's so healthy and bright, and just her disposition and everything. She doesn't go to the doctor. She doesn't need to. She's never sick. If she does come down with a fever every once in a while, it's gone within 24 hours. We don't give Tylenol or anything like that. We just make sure she's comfortable, and we support her with vitamin supplementation and things like that. And it's just been night and day difference. And I don't realize how affected McKay was as I look back in those first 2-3 years of his life, until I really had that comparison in my household to see the difference just in everything, in development and behaviors and health and everything. So that's what normal is.
And so when you listen to Karl Jablonowski, who was on before you, talking about the whole corruption behind the vaccine schedule, and you, me, and gazillions of parents trusted our most precious gifts, our children, with our doctors, our pediatricians. How does it make you feel when you're sitting next to your son, who's doing fantastically, McKay, by the way, but it's not fair. It shouldn't be, as it shouldn't be with my son and everybody else's. How does it make you feel? Do you even like it? Yeah.
Just angry. I mean, you go through all these stages like of anger, regret, blaming yourself. Why didn't I look into that? But then, you look at the other side of it, where we're at now, and we have gratitude that we know this information. And it also helped us as we went into COVID. We knew not to get those vaccines. It wasn't even a question. And all the protocols around it. It was just, you have this distrust now of anything you hear in mainstream news or media. And then just seeing the difference between our kids. And we are all so much healthier. We all eat gluten-free in the house. We organic, as whole food based as we can. And so at the end of the day, if this had never happened to him, I think we would have still all been really unhealthy, just in a different way. And in this way, the way that it happened, we're all just so much healthier for it. And we have that knowledge and discernment to be able to know what is right and what is bullcrap.
So, McKay, when you grow up, what would you like to be? If you could be anything in the world, I know you like soccer and I know you like music.
Yeah, I love those.
So what would you like to be if you could be anything? Because you can be anything, by the way.
Probably a musician or an artist, like a music artist. Or
You know what else you could be?
what?
You could be a chef and open this restaurant full of amazing organic foods where children like you can go and get pizzas and everything that they need that's all super healthy.
Yeah, I'd make if I made a restaurant, I'd make foods with no soy, no dairy, no rice, no oats, and no corn. And it would just be really healthy.
And so many people would be there at your shop or your restaurant for sure. Any last words, Mum? Any advice for those young parents watching right now who just don't know whether to vaccinate or not? Because who wants polio, right?
Right. Do your research on what the diseases are that you're getting vaccinated for. Dig deep. Find out what's really in those vaccines. I had no clue. And if you have someone giving you resistance that's more in the mainstream, then you're probably on the right track to finding what's going to be best for you and your family. And, when in doubt, just wait. There's no harm in waiting. And biggest for us was me following my mommy instinct. I mean, it was so powerful in getting him diagnosed and then learning of later on when he got diagnosed with celiac a few years later. Just those instincts are so strong, and we employ them every day in what we do for his care and with my other child too, and with ourselves. So trust your instincts and do your research, and there's hope.
There is hope. Well, McKay, you look amazing. You look healthy. You sound great. So you're going to have a great future ahead of you. And thank you so much for warning us all about the danger of vaccines. We so appreciate you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
At least you know now how dangerous vaccines are.
Yeah, thanks, McKay. Thanks to you. All right, well, we'll speak to you again soon. Hopefully we'll have you back on again, McKay. We'd love to have you back on again at some point. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. All right, well, that was fun, everyone, and an important message there as well. But now let's go to England to Jacqui. Good morning, Jacqui. Thank you for waiting. Jacqui Deevoy.
morning to you and good afternoon to me.
Good afternoon to you, absolutely. Jacqui, tell us about your new book. And actually, before you do that, just remind everyone who you are because we love your movies.
Yeah, I've been a freelance journalist for over 40 years now. And about 6 years ago, when my dad was in a care home, I started sort of looking into what was going on in the care homes and how I could get him out. I realised that DNRs had been put onto all the residents in care homes and thought that was a bit strange. Started speaking out about that on various podcasts and on social media, and got invited onto a couple of big shows. And then people started coming to me with stories about their loved ones seemingly being involuntarily euthanized in hospitals and care homes, which was a bit of a shocker. And the more I mentioned it and spoke out about it, the more people came to me with their stories. And all the stories were really shocking and heartbreaking, but also very, very similar, you know. So that clip there is from Playing God, which is my second film, which I made in 2024. And that is about medical democide in the UK over the last 50 years. It's kind of a broader look at how government policies affect people's lives in a detrimental way. The first film I made was with Iconic Media back in 2021, and that was called A Good Death, and that's a reference to euthanasia, which is called a good death, with obviously euthanasia being taken from the Greek word euthanatos, which means a happy or good death, and that featured that was very early on, so 2021. But everything in that documentary still stands. Everything I say in it, everything that the people who are interviewed say in it, it still stands today, 5 years later. Then I made a third film last year called Unseen, which is a longer film actually, but kind of just an update on all the other stuff in all the other films. So yeah, that one came out in July last year, and I'm actually working on a new film now, which isn't about involuntary euthanasia, but that's something just hopefully we'll get that out later this year. That's about organ donation, organ harvesting, and the all the controversy that surrounds brain death. So that's coming out later this year. But yeah, last month I had a book published, Murdered by the State, which is 42 accounts from people whose loved ones were murdered in hospitals and care homes since over the last 6 or 7 years. So those pictures on the front cover there are the actual victims. So that's 40 of the 42 actual victims whose stories are told in the book by their loved ones. We've also got an audiobook, which is not like any other audiobook you've ever heard. It's I wanted to get the people who actually told their stories to narrate the stories on the audiobook. And although it was quite difficult to do, we managed to get a lot of them to do that. The ones that couldn't do it for whatever reason, and not everyone can do that, obviously, because it's a tough thing to do. We had to other people step in to read their stories, but the majority of the stories are read by the actual relatives of victims.
And so talk a little bit more about your book, though. I mean, how people can get it? Because we don't want people going to Amazon, although sometimes they have to. We understand that. But, you know, where they can get it and why they should get it.
There's a link there that I did send to you, which is the best. There it is there. That's the best way to get it. You can get a hardback, a paperback, you can get an ebook. You can also get a PDF, pay as much as you want PDF for people who can't afford the books. You can even get it for free if you don't have any money to pay for it. So yeah, use that link and that'll take you straight to the sales page where you'll find lots of information about the book as well and about each of the stories.
Yeah, and we all know, I mean, there's 42 accounts there. We all know that's just a tiny part of millions that were murdered by the state. And over here, we made the film Vax Suite covering the same thing as well. It's worldwide, way bigger. And you know what, Jacqui? What upsets me is who is doing anything about that? Yes, we recorded the stories and people write to us and they get very upset because they say, what are you going to do about it? what are we doing about it? I don't know how everyone talks about the dangers of the COVID shots, but no one's talking about all the people that were murdered in hospital, which I think is probably way more than the people hurt by the shot.
Yeah, I mean, there are some individuals over here in the UK who are going through court hearings, inquests, but the problem is, number one, it's really hard to go up against the NHS and the government. It's very hard to find any lawyer that will want to do that, or who are able to do that. Also, we've got the money issue. It can cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to actually, get anything underway legally. And obviously, the NHS, the government, it's like they've got a bottomless pit of funds, whereas most normal people don't have that. Most people, I've known some people who started the process, spent 20 or 30,000 pounds, and then that's it. Their money's gone. They can't afford any more. And this is what they rely on. That people aren't able to go this far. But I know that a couple of people are behind the scenes doing some great stuff and actually spending the money. And hopefully something will come of that, and we'll hear about that hopefully this year. So.
And what about you've got future projects that you're working on? Talk to us about those, or how people can get involved, actually.
Yeah, so we've got the one I'm working on at the moment. The film is the one I mentioned just now, called The Gift of Life, ? And like I said, it's about organ donation, organ harvesting, and the myth around brain death, which is something that I've been just personally interested in for a long time. We're interviewing experts, we're interviewing people who've had loved ones die after being diagnosed as brain dead. We're talking to people who have been diagnosed as brain dead and then woke up, for want of a better way to put it. And it's going to have lots of interesting material included in that. I'm also working on another book, but I haven't really started that yet. I've got enough material to do another, 5 versions of Murdered by the State. So I was thinking of doing a volume 2 called Murdered by the State. The cull continues, because it's still happening. I've got a support group that I set up in 2021, and that's got nearly 200 people in it. Not everyone wants to join a support group, obviously, but that's like you say, it's the tip of the iceberg. And most of them want their stories in a book. They want them published. I've kind of promised everyone in the group that I would try and get all their stories out there in one way or another. So I've written a lot of articles for various newspapers, obviously not the mainstream, because they will not touch this subject at all. I've been trying for 5 years to. I still pitch it now. Every couple of weeks, I'm like, "Are you ready to run this story?" And I'm really getting on their nerves now, because they just ignore me. But I've had a lot of individual stories published in alternative newspapers like The Light over here, and on various websites. So the stories are getting out there. I've also, got some of the people onto, radio shows, podcasts, etc., so they can tell their stories. And it is shocking how similar these stories are. And once you see the people speaking about it, or once you hear them on the audiobook, there's no way you can't believe them. I mean, like you, Polly, you've interviewed so many people telling such tragic stories, and you get to a point, you know what's true and you know what's made up. These people are telling the truth, and there's no way you can deny it. And people who've watched my films as well, in particular, maybe they're watching them thinking, "Oh, I don't know about this, sounds a bit conspiracy theory, a bit mad." Once they've watched them, they come back and say, "Oh my God, I think that happened to my mum. I think that happened to my brother," and it gets them thinking. So the films are definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I love Playing God. It was so well done. Where can people watch these films?
I've got the link. I did send you the links. So
Same link as the book.
Yeah, no, different links. So,
okay, so Lou will put that up, and people will put it in the show notes, definitely. Jacqui, so with all the work that you've done, you really point towards, with everything, even the organ harvesting, it makes you not want to ever go into a hospital.
I know, it really does. And the strange thing is, I was in hospital in 2023. I broke both my ankles. That's another very long story. But that was in Malta. It wasn't great, but it was okay. But the last time I was in hospital here was in October. And all the staff in this hospital were absolutely brilliant. So it's like, and this particular hospital, which is Worthing Hospital, anyone I know who's been there just say it's amazing. And honestly, I couldn't fault them in any way. But then I hear these other stories of other hospitals. It's very strange how I can't work out any kind of pattern to it, any rhyme or reason to it, why some hospitals are fantastic and other hospitals are just awful. So it's very strange because I've probably spoken to over 1,000 people in the last 5 years, but even that's not a big enough sample to, come to any conclusions. I'm constantly trying to work out patterns. It's just the way I am. Is there a day of the week that people are dying on more than other days of the week, or month of the year, or whatever? I'm always trying to see patterns. Or is there a certain area in the UK where these murders are more prevalent? But as yet, I haven't been able to work out any proper pattern to it at all.
No, it's interesting. We did notice when we were traveling on the bus that it's hospitals. So you can be in one area and have a really brilliant hospital, and you can have a hospital that's just taking as much money to kill as many people as possible.
Yeah.
But here's my final question to you, Jacqui. With the work that you do, I mean, you're really exposing some dark side stuff. Do you ever get threats? Do you ever feel afraid?
No, I don't have that kind of fear, but I don't know why. I've got a bit of a rhino skin. People say things all the time. People say horrible things, especially on social media. And I just did a post this morning actually, because some people have said, because my dad died in really horrible circumstances, and I think he was killed as well. I haven't properly. I did report it to the police, but as you know, if you know about Operation Taller over here, which started a few years back, the police weren't investigating any of these hospital murders, and they weren't investigating anything that involved vaccine injuries or deaths or anything like that. So, and that was put in place a few years ago. And so when I reported it to the police, they weren't really interested. They kind of pretended to investigate. But I just, people have said to me, do you think what happened to your dad was like a warning shot, And my immediate reaction is, oh no, don't be so ridiculous. We're not in a movie, this is real life. But then when I do look around and I see people who do speak out and the stuff that they've suffered. I mean, I don't know if you remember my friend Anna de Buisseret, the lawyer, she died very young. She was in the film Playing God. And other people who've lost loved ones in the most horrendous ways, who are dissenters and who are speaking out. It does make you wonder. I don't want to believe that's true. When you look at all the details, you think, no, that couldn't have happened, and I hope it's not true. But, it's something that I do consider sometimes. But I don't particularly, want to believe that's true at this point in time. But it's possible, yeah, definitely. But
It was really sad about Anna, actually. That was tragic. All right. Well, look, everyone, the book is out. The link is in the show notes. If you want to see the films, the link will be in the show notes. Jacqui, do keep us updated on everything that you're doing, and thank you for all the work that you do as well. We truly appreciate it, and you.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, now this is the end of the show, and so tomorrow we got Financial Rebellion, and I don't think I'm going to be on. I think you've got something else going on tomorrow morning, so look out for that, and I'll see you on Friday. All right, pray big, my friends. Speak soon.
My name is Casey Corcoran.
And you took one Moderna COVID shot.
That's correct.
What made you think that was a good idea?
I didn't think it was a good idea. I was trying to get my job back as a teacher. I was forced into remote teaching, and I had difficulties with the administration at my school, which made the remote teaching much harder on me specifically. So I just wanted to go back to the classroom, and they said to get the shot, you have to go on campus, you have to get the shot to go back to your job. So I did.
So where did you get the Moderna?
I got the Moderna at a LUSD sponsored event in Long Beach, California, at March 9th, 2021.
And when you went to get the Moderna, did they take any medical history from you, or?
No, there was nothing. It was just stand in line and get the shot and wait 15 minutes afterwards.
So when did you start to feel ill?
Well, I got the shot on a Tuesday. I went home. I had a chicken sandwich. Went to sleep. The next day, I woke up and I was like a split in two. My left side of my body was totally hurting and achy, and my right side was fine. So that was the next day, Wednesday. Thursday, I woke up, and I attributed those Wednesday things to like what they attribute normal vaccine feelings. Right? You're gonna feel crappy. So Thursday, I woke up and my whole chest muscle here, from my sternum all the way to my armpit here, was twitching. The whole muscle, 24/7 for 9 weeks, okay, amongst other twitches in my body. Nothing above my neck, right? So it was just twitching everywhere, twitches. But this muscle here was twitching 24/7 for nine weeks and 2 days. And it stopped, it diminished, it stopped. And I didn't use my arm. I realized when I used my arm, the twitching increases, so I stopped using my arm. And up until when the twitching was going on, I had no pain. It was just twitching all over my body, my back, my legs, abdomen, everywhere. And when the twitching stopped, that's when the pain started. And the pain started in my chest first, I believe. But it started in my chest, and I thought, wow, that's normal because the muscles have been going for 9 weeks consecutive. Maybe they're tired, right? So maybe it's just hurting from that. And then it just was spreading went into my whole arm, my hand, my chest, my upper back, started spreading around across my upper back. And that's when the side effects, and that's what happened to me.
And so you were not able to go back to work?
No, my work denied me of my injuries. They gaslighted me. They wouldn't deal with my injuries. So they were trying to get me to take the second shot. And I said, I'm not doing that. I didn't want the first one. So I retired. I got to the age of retirement a week before they were going to fire me. So I retired. Take that. But I lost my job. I mean, they forced me into retirement, which I wasn't ready to do. So I lost 7 months after I resigned in September of 21. For the next 7 months, I had no health insurance and no money because I hadn't planned on retiring, which I had to break up my retirement with my ex-wife. So it just complicated matters that they made me retire when I wasn't ready. I got a reduced, very small retirement after 27 years as a teacher. I got $2,000 a month. I can't live in LA on that. So then through the process of up until I tried to go back to work because there was no other answers for me. So I tried to go back to a teaching job part-time, but I couldn't even do that. I couldn't do it. It was just too painful. I just go home and lay down. So I don't work.
So what is a day in the life like for you now because of this one Moderna shot?
A lot of sitting around, laying down. Not much else. Sit around, lay around, try to be positive. Since the diagnosis, I realized that even me getting emotional like this is bad, from what they diagnosed me with. My sympathetic nervous system is on 24/7, just firing, right? So any type of emotional stress, physical stress, financial stress, anything that gets my system kind of like where I am now, this just exacerbates the situation. So, sorry.
Well, do you mind me asking what your life was like before
Yeah.
the shot?
No. I was active. I was a 54-year-old man, active teacher. I body surfed. I biked. I walked 3-4 times a week, 2-3 miles a day, 2 to 3 miles at a time. I had kids. I led a normal life. Right. I was a teacher and I had summers off, and it was great. It was a nice life.
What advice do you give to someone that's watching now that might be under the same pressure you want to go and get a booster?
Man, I wouldn't do it. And it's not just me. Since I've had this happen to me, I've spoken to so many people around the United States mostly, and even my neighbors and stuff, and I just watch these people go back for their boosters, and I'm just like, why? They're wondering why they're ill. And I'm like, hello? And it's not my spot to tell them, right? But at the same point, I realize the vaccines are doing this to you. I have 2 elderly neighbors on this side that they're both just so jacked up now. I mean, they've taken every booster, right? And they still wear the masks and everything. And I'm not against masks. I'm not against vaccines. I was a teacher, right? For 27 years, I took all the TB tests and whatever tests they wanted me to do. But I wouldn't do it. I mean, look at the outside of this bus, right? Come talk to me. Live a day in my life, and you'll not want to be in my body.
What's going to happen to you if you can't live on the $2,000 an hour?
Well, I'm about roughly, I would say 2 to 3 weeks. I'm gonna be homeless. I've purchased a house with my mom, who's older, right? She's 81, and I was supposed to pay the nut on the house when I was with my job, and it's been almost 2 years, 3 years now that I haven't been able to pay anything, really barely anything. And so she's been footing the bill, and it's over, right? She can't do it. It's over, and I'm getting gaslit by the medical community, blamed for my injuries based on prior injuries I had. It caused me to react like this, and so it's just pure hell. Like, my relationship, it's severed my relationship with my mom, right? Of financial strain. She can't do it anymore. So that we lost the house. And it's like, I lost the relationship more than that. Right? I lost my fiance. It's,
Sorry. It really has destroyed your life.
yeah, for sure.
Is there anything else you want to tell the people?
Check my notes. Man, don't give up your autonomy for anything. Don't. Because it might not happen to you, but it could happen to somebody you love. And it has a lot of effects. It's not just me that's hurt. My children, my families, my friends. I've lost, like, it's such an isolating thing with CRPS to go through. It's isolating. I've been suicidal for 2.5 years. And, you know, I still get suicidal feelings, and I almost killed myself twice. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm still here. So, that's, I guess, what I want to tell people is trust your gut feeling and don't give in to pressure. Just find another job. I wish I had, because I know people that didn't get the jab and they have better jobs, more money, their health, right, their career. I lost everything. So trust your gut feeling and don't trust the vaccine industry, for sure. That's it.
Thank you.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.